Good evening and welcome back. Welcome to the Smart Entrepreneurship Decoded show on Transcontinental Times. On this show, every week, we've had a new guest. Every time. What we attempt to do is try to see, can we find out that one insight, that one actionable item that we can experiment with in our entrepreneurship journey and learn something and achieve our own goals. Something away from the stereotypical, something away from all the bombastic things we hear after people become successful, something practical, something grounded, something real. And every week, our guests have given that to us. On another note, I have been privileged to have mentored at least two cohorts of entrepreneurs from one of the leading private universities of India in Chandigarh. The demography of the students is such that most of them come from around Chandigarh, Punjab, Haryana, Himachal Pradesh. And most of these students are children of parents who run a small to medium enterprise or run a small retail outlet. So these students are backed by their parents to study further than they themselves ever studied, by which I mean the parents. The parents are backing the students to study much further than they themselves studied. But the students at the back of their mind know they could always go back to the comfort of their family business. Some students treat the education journey as a lark and go back to the comfort of the family business the moment their education cycle is over. No harm in that. There's no right or wrong answer. Some others attempt entrepreneurship or a job for some time, find it too tough, or the family badgers them, why are you working for somebody else? Why are you doing this and taking so much time and spending so much effort? If you spend the same time and effort in the family business, you would do so much better. At some time it gets to them, they give up and they go back. A very small proportion are fired by their own ambition. They want to chart their own course. They are not rebelling against the family. They are trying to find a different course. They want to create their own identity. They want to do something on their own. They want to have a sense of achievement of something that they have created, not something they have inherited. Like I said, no right or wrong answer. Even those who go back, that's fine. Some of the biggest businesses in the world are family owned. But this special breed of entrepreneurs who choose entrepreneurship in a direction away from the family business by choice, fired by their own zeal, own ambition, own desire to find their own identity, is a unique breed. Our guest tonight is from that breed. Born into a family that has almost an iconic status of a chartered accountancy practice in Mumbai. He chose not to follow that path. He chose to follow a different path of entrepreneurship in a slightly different line and make an identity for himself. And he stayed on that path till he has become successful and has an identity in his own right. I was privileged to meet him at the start of his journey somewhere in 2003, 18 years ago, a time when I had hair. Somewhere in 2003, when he was just starting out on this journey, and I was hugely impressed what he was trying to do. I could not participate in the journey. I left in a month because I had some other dreams and was going in a completely different direction in a large corporate. But we stayed in touch. And a few years ago, I met him again at the India Fund Fest, where he came as an investor. And we shared our journeys over the last 18 years. And his journey is absolutely outstanding and inspirational. Please welcome our guest tonight, Mr. Umesh Chhazzed from Mumbai. Welcome,
Hello,
Umesh.
everybody. Thank you, Nalin, for your so many kind words. And for a moment, I was wondering, is it really about me? So nice to hear.
It is amazing. Sometimes I go to some forums and people introduce me nicely, and I hope my wife was here to hear this, because at home your credibility and all this is zero, right? Nobody really believes you've done anything.
So this is where I really, I'm glad that we are doing this on a digital platform. At least now I have an opportunity to share this with my wife and say that, please hear some of this and maybe it will rub off with you.
Fantastic. So, Umesh, I've known you at the start and now towards this side of the journey, and in between we had a gap of 15 years. It's amazing what you have created. Let's go back to the start of that journey when you were a much younger person, though you look the same now. You're one of, and I must say this, you're one of the fittest people I know. I mean, your commitment to fitness is just outstanding. But if we
It is
go back
a
to
lot
this,
of effort.
and
Lot
it's
of effort.
always been there. It's always been there. Even 18 years ago, you used to talk about fitness to me, and I was always in shape, but around shape, like I am now. But let's go back to those years. How difficult was it to stand up to the family and say, "I want to do something different"?
So it was difficult right from the beginning that when one has to decide. So you have to decide this quite early on. In 10th standard is when you decide, right, whether you are walking down the commerce path or you're walking down the science path, right? You walk down the commerce path, you join your established or pretty large practice even then, right? And you know that you basically can end up growing the same, or you decide to do something else, kind of look at what's happening and what you gives you, inspires you, and what triggers you. So computers those days, right, was something that would always make me curious and would want me to do things in that particular path. So I took a decision. My elder brother, obviously, he followed commerce. He's joined the family practices, done very well for himself, and I decided to walk down the science path. The first year for me was very difficult, right? I was in middle of all these guys who were talking Resnick, Halliday and whatnot, and then I was like, oh my god, did I make a wrong decision? But then I kind of came back, rebounded. Year 12 is when you kind of have to do well. I did pretty well, got into my engineering, did pretty well there as well. Then I said the next, so then it was like I wanted to do something in the IT field. So which is when I decided to do my MBA, went to Australia, got myself in one of the topmost universities there, and got a degree for myself. And then after all this, I was like, now what? Now what do you do, right? So the family is used to, they are professionals, right? So they are not used to investing capital and starting a business and having a 3 years or a 5 years time frame in which you have return on capital and things like that. So I basically ended up starting with almost zilch capital, right? And what I had to do was build, crawl my way up from establishing relationships, starting in offshore development centers, doing things in a smaller way, and then. But one thing that I always one motto that I would like to share with some of our all of our viewers is I always would aim high. So even when I wanted to do my education, my aim was very high. Not knowing, so irrespective of how daunting it was, I was like, even in education, I would say that I want 98.5%, right? And then you just keep on chasing it, right? Just aim very high, and try and see where you land up. And luckily, I landed up exactly where I wanted to in terms of the education aspects. So similar thing happened in business. I said I want to have a software company which is amongst the giants in Mumbai, and which is where this software export zone is in Andheri. So I landed up in their office with almost zero experience, right? And I said that I want to open a company here and I want to have a unit here. And they told me that you need to write a business report, you need to do this, you need to do that, and you need to then if you qualify, you'll get it. So that is the time that I sat down and I wrote a 5 year business plan, right, without anybody's help, not even the help of the CAs who were right next door, my father and my brother. And I put down this business plan and I presented it to those people. And surprise, surprise, I found myself my present business plan to be accepted, and I got a unit allotted against competition from very established names like Datamatics, Mailstar at that point of time, and some even larger organization. So that is how it started off by
So
aiming high and being on the path.
I remember coming to that office. Do you still have that? Do you still have that office in
Absolutely,
C? Okay.
absolutely. I have it, and of course we've grown to
So,
multiple geographies. But yeah.
so you touched an important point, right? Which is valid for people whose parents are already into business, especially service kind of business. So they are not into the process of investing money, a large amount of capital, and then waiting for it to come back and then scaling, right? Because they are accomplished individuals, they provide a service, they get paid a fee, often in advance. And their lifetime goodwill is the name of the firm, right? They're proud about the name, and that name has a brand associated with it. Now, here you were saying, no, 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 no. Now I'm going to spend whatever I have learned, I'm going to invest capital, and then I'm going to set up a business, and then I'm going to go try sell it. So it's not like a demand pull, right? Complete different kind of thing. Did you face questions, ridicule? What the hell are you doing? Why are you doing it?
So I think I set that up pretty early on in my life that I am walking a different path. So in that sense, I was the black sheep in the family. So I was already on down the science path. So joining the practice is out of question. So I think I saved myself a lot of trouble and pain of answering all this and facing all this a little later in the life after I've got amassed all the education that I needed to. So, but what happened is definitely getting capital, right, and making people to invest in your business was a big challenge. So what I did was, so I'm from a Marwadi family, right? In India, this kind of sect is supposed to be able to do a business from in the most cost effective way.
True.
So from a peon to a CEO, right? That is the kind of scale of abilities that one has to develop if one has to do things without a lot of capital backing you up. So I think I probably would have got just about a couple of lakh of rupees from my family, and even till date, that is the only equity showing on my balance sheet. There is no further addition of equity, no further dilution. That's the only equity showing on my balance sheet, even till date. So with that amount of money, with a computer, a network connection, I'm talking about 25 years back, a dial-up modem. So we used to do connecting with the clients in US, UK, trying to do some small projects in India, right? And so all of it was trying to do quite a bit of it yourself, and then of course build a team, a small team, make it revenue neutral, and then move on, and then move on, and so on.
So you know that nowadays the people, especially the younger people, take it for granted: BPO, outsourcing, offshoring, etc. But we are part of the generation where this was a hard sell. Send your work to India, or even send it from one location in Mumbai to another. Give me your payroll. These were like holy grails, right? You mentioned about setting your bar high as one of the things that drove you to success. What are a few other couple of things that uh, you think contributed to your venture succeeding or you succeeding?
So I think I, in my mind, I've kept it very simple. One is to aim high, and second is to remain accountable. So a lot of people don't understand the meaning of responsible and accountable, right?
Okay.
Accountable is to make things happen. When you are an entrepreneur, facing obstacles is like a part of your journey, right? And if you are the who can make things happen, right, then you have the chances of becoming more successful in your business, right? But if you're just responsible and I said I did my bit, now the other person has to do his bit, right, and not making it happen, then I think you're in for a tough ride, right? So that's one. So the two things I mentioned, one is aim high, be accountable, and the third is always remain cost focused, right? So even now, if I have to buy something or if I have to engage somebody, I make sure that I understand the value proposition, and I try and make sure that the cost aspects of it is under control. So irrespective of having a fat balance sheet doesn't mean that you squander it all, right? So that's something that I have always been very conscious about, and trust me, it has helped me tremendously in all the 2 3 downturn cycles that I've seen, right? It is so, I shouldn't be saying this, but I think we are probably running one of the least cost kind of an organization in the field that we are in. I'm willing to benchmark also that our cost matrices would be probably the lowest.
Okay. So aim high, remain accountable and responsible, and cost focused, right?
Right.
Completely focused on the cost. So that brings me to a couple of questions, because we were at the India Fund Fest together. And apart from that, also, you must be being bombarded by entrepreneurs who always have an idea. What fails to impress me is the number of entrepreneurs who come up, especially in the service sector, looking for capital when actually they don't need capital, they need advice. And but they still come and ask for this disproportionate amount of capital. And if you look at their projected P&L, etc., uh, actually there is no need of capital. It's a service business. There's nothing required. Why do you think that happens, or what would you be your advice to such entrepreneurs? Because seeking money and funding seems to be almost a social compulsion, a badge of honor. Without that, you can't be an entrepreneur. Without that, you can't be a startup. Do you face that scenario? I mean,
All the time. So, what has happened is people have started equating entrepreneurship success to being able to raise funds means you're successful, right? Just raising funds is not success. People are not understanding, or the younger generation feels that if you have the money, you will definitely be an organization that can scale up, that can do well, and so on and so forth. But I am always at pains to explain to them that you have an Oyo and you have another similar brand trying to do the same thing in a similar field, right? But you will not always see that both of them have become unicorns, or you would have a Swiggy or a Scootsie, or some such names that I shouldn't be probably saying. But you have these examples where they have been equally probably well funded, but execution is the key, right? Just having the money is just the start of the thing. It's not going to ensure anything, right? So execution is the key.
so
And
that's an
of
important
course, you
point.
are right. You are absolutely right. You don't need money. So why do you seek money? It's because now success is tagged to this company has got funded. So you are like, oh, you're already a success.
Yeah. Now you make an important point. That at the end of the day, execution matters. I also believe that at the end of the day, they should keep their eyes focused on the cash flow rather than wasting their energy and time seeking funding for most of the service industries. I do understand if you're setting up a steel plant, you need capital, right? That's a different ballgame altogether. But when we speak of execution, from your experience, what are the things you do? What is execution? I mean, you get a great team, but I know of so many companies that raised a lot of money and still failed, like you gave an example. So many companies that put up a great team, but still failed. It's like, the all-time 11 of Test cricket playing that time's greatest country, Australia, and still Australia beat them 3-0. You had a Tendulkar, Callis, all of them in one team, and Lara, and they still lost. So just putting the team doesn't work. So to your mind, what is that execution? What is it that people don't get about execution? Because today's world is more about the hype, the glamour, the words. When we say execution, again, the word execution is bandied about like an acronym or some kind of you just throw the word execution, it'll happen. But what is execution?
So for sure, it's a very complex subject, and it cannot be just very plainly and simply explained. A lot of dynamics in play. But I think if one just focuses on, like, So what happens is, suppose if you've got a lot of money, right? You just chase some kind of milestones, right? And try to make it happen, right? If you're able to do that, right, and if you're able to keep building that up, fine, you're on the path of being able to do that. But I think, so in terms of execution, I think one definitely needs to be able to, at least meet the milestone that has been set in terms of the cash uh, burn, in terms of
So,
some
so
of the things.
you mentioned a plan or writing a plan earlier. Do you uh, work with defined plans and try to hold people accountable to that? And how often do those plans change, especially in the early years?
So, I'm sure all of us have sat on an Excel and prepared an Excel sheet and would have thought that the execution will happen as per the projections put on the Excel sheet, but never. Never. Even if, so I give myself a best chance. I think if I would have really done well, even if I do 40% of what is there on the Excel sheet, right? So I provide myself a lot of opportunity to pivot, right? And give a lot of leeway and space for people to develop and, to get into their mold before they are able to deliver. So I think just putting unrealistic targets or just putting an Excel kind of a exponential or incremental targets doesn't always work. And then one really needs to pivot and understand and then play with the cost, and then so it's a little complex manipulation that needs to keep happening. So you try to execute a plan and then you see that it is not getting executed the way it is. Then you have to pivot it. You have to make changes. So I think if you have your eye on the ball all the time, right, then your ability to execute becomes a little better. But if you think that, oh, I have pushed the ball, now it should all happen, then I think that's not the way it works.
That's very, very true. Let's move to another topic. Now I know you probably get a lot of entrepreneurs meeting you. You have attended India Fund Fest as well, etc. When you look at an opportunity for investment, whatever it could be, whatever size it is, whatever industry it is, what is it you look for as an investor yourself with your investment philosophy, etc.? There's no right or wrong answer to that. What do you look for?
So the first thing that I look for is, this a business that I would have wanted to do it myself? Does that
Okay.
excite me? I mean, does it make me, oh, I would have loved to be in this business, right? Oh, it's such a nice opportunity. There is a lot of scope of, doing a lot of things there. So that's the first thing that, I look for, as in, if I were to do it, would I jump it and would I do it myself, right? Do I have the skills? Do I have the bandwidth? All those questions are for later, right? But that's the first thing that I see, is that, from my understanding, right? From whatever little I understand of the sector that it is in, that is what I try to first understand, that is it an opportunity that is exciting, and does it really trigger me? So that's the first thing that I look at,
Okay. So one
and
of the
then all
things
the
that
other numbers, everything follows subsequently,
yeah, that
right?
follows.
And
That
yeah,
follows. But
all that follows
uh,
subsequently.
I get the point that the first thing you look for is this something I would have wanted to do myself? Does it
Right.
excite me? So that's a good thing to know. Now you are also one of the few people where you started a business 15 to 18 years ago, and then you're stuck to it, right? You have not sold it to anybody. You have not got diverted by doing 10 other businesses. You may have had a few others on the way, but you stuck to a business, a path. How difficult is that? I mean, entrepreneurs always get this urge that I should do this also, this also, this also, but you stuck to a path. How difficult was that?
So so right from the beginning, what I'd done was, I've had a set of people associated with me, right, who can be trusted with, and who also had a similar kind of, although they were professionally, engaged with me, right, but we had a kind of, we knew where we want to take this business, right. So that's something that I want to say, is that, my executive team has been with me for the last 18 years continuously. So the average age of the person in the organization is about 10, and so on and so forth. So it brings a lot of stability in the business. And of course, I had those small little, not small, I would say, pretty, that's, so real estate is one of the passions that I had. So I did follow real estate, but it was from an investment perspective, and it was also from doing certain things which will creatively occupy me. So that's certain that is one line that I did, and I kind of pursued it to a large extent, right? But without losing the focus on my core business. So the bread and butter has to be there, and the remaining was just looked at it in perspective of satisfying my creative interests.
So there is a band of entrepreneurs like yourself, just around uh, midlife, right? Around 40s, etc. They have had a journey of ups, downs, and now they are successful, accomplished, etc. So, how do people like you look at the second half? I mean, what is it? Are you going to do more entrepreneurship? How do you see that part of it evolving? Is it more of the same? What next is my real question. What next for people like you?
So it's actually a very interesting question that you asked. So last year, COVID, right? A lot of time, lot of mind space to think, right?
Sure.
And as you are aware, that I've always been an fitness enthusiast. So during the COVID, sometime I had this urge of I was saying that there's not enough. So as a sweet, right? I wanted to have a protein as a sweet after my meals. So I was like, let's try and do something in this aspect where you can eat and meet your protein requirements even while having a sweet tooth and not really, disturbing the equation. So, so in the second half or the second journey, right? I'll be I've embarked on two enterprises. I've started two companies. One is in the fitness space where we are generating protein-based products, and the other is in the similar recruitment area where we are developing an assessment platform and a gap skilling platform. So one is to do with the core area, and one is to do with the hobby area that I've had for many years. So now I'm taking that time to pursue those aspects of my, my interest, which otherwise I wouldn't have had the time to.
So, do you have co-founders in that, or is it something you're doing on your own again?
No, I'm doing it on my own, but I've put a team in place, which is a great team, and we are all getting it done in a way that probably, again, of course, has to be cost effective, has to hit a certain milestone before we can look at funding or any of those objectives.
So let's touch upon that team aspect. You mentioned in your company, a lot of the core team has stayed over a decade, right? Decade and a half. Again, when you're starting a new business, you mentioned you have a great team set up to take it forward. How do you choose? What do you look for in the person?
So there are a couple of aspects. There is one is the physical presence of a person. When you meet and talk to the person, there is just the physical aspect, right? You cannot ignore the form in terms of what the comfort level is, and there is the content aspect. So in terms of the form aspects, what I look at is for people who have high energy. So
Okay.
there are I try to keep it very simple. Is can the person think clearly? So if I'm asking some questions, do I get crisp, clear answers which are to the point and shows the clarity of thinking? And the other is, does the person have a lot of energy? So for executing, you need a lot of energy, right?
Yes.
And for overcoming obstacles, you basically need to be so energetic enough to just bulldoze all the obstacles that you get in your way. So these are the two things that I primarily look for, and then all the associated other stuff.
And that resonates well with me too. I look for energy, and I look for what I call is only a gift, which is clarity of thought. That the person may be wrong, but they're not confused. You know,
Absolutely.
they may be wrong, and they'll be open to changing their path if they find some compelling reason, but they're not confused and giving you answers that I can do this also or do this also. I could do this way also. They are clear. You may not agree with them, but they're clear. And that clarity of thought is a gift. And once you find people with that, with energy, it's an absolute winning combination.
Absolutely. Very difficult to find. Let me say that.
Very difficult to find. Very difficult to find. I know, it is very odd and paradoxical that in a country like India, which is 1.3 billion people, and the whole world thinks that it is a talent powerhouse, we find it so difficult to find people. It's amazing. And some of the people in some other countries don't believe it, right? With smaller populations, they find it difficult to comprehend. But we know finding right people is a tough thing because there are so many other factors in it. India is not one homogeneous mass.
Absolutely.
Mumbai is virtually a country on its own. Seeps is a completely like a state of its own compared to where you stay in South Mumbai.
Absolutely. It's a 104-acre property. That huge.
True, true. So I'll come to my last question, and this has got nothing to do with business or what you're going to do in future, etc. Entrepreneurship is a tough journey. You made it tougher for yourself where you chose to choose a different path. Now, people may say, oh, he could have always fallen back on that. But I look at it differently. You took a huge risk where your credibility could have been questioned in the family. Black sheep is one thing to now talk about now, but living through it at that phase, where friends, family, everybody looked at you and thought, what the hell is he trying to do? What is he trying to prove? Is he trying to prove us wrong or himself right? Do we call it enthusiasm or do we call it stubbornness? There would have been so many questions. How do you, and this is my last question, how do you keep yourself mentally stable through that time, through challenges, or even now, through the COVID pandemic in a people's business? How do you keep yourself grounded? How do you keep yourself stable? What do you do? Are there extracurricular activities? Are there relaxation techniques? What do you do personally?
So I have a very grueling schedule, Nalin. I wake up at 6 in the morning, do 1 hour of yoga and pranayam, followed by an hour of gymming, followed by half an hour of swimming. So that's my current schedule. So with all of that put together, I need to be ready by 9 o'clock and be after my meal, etc. I have to be ready to start work at 9:30. So that's the schedule that I'm on right now. But throughout my life, I have been doing some or the other physical activity, and this goes all the way back to my MBA days when in the orientation they said that it's a grueling program, right? But we encourage you to go and play a sport or do something because that is going to keep your energy levels up and keep you kind of what do you say? If you look at electricity, it's like earthing yourself. So it drains off all your negative emotions, thoughts, etc., and hopefully keeps you oriented and balanced.
Yeah. So you gave such an unfashionable answer, right? Most of the young people today, and I will say that with the caveat that there is a small proportion of people who genuinely are effective only at night. So, leaving that exception aside, a lot of the people who come up to us for investment, etc., seem to think that it will be fashionable to say, I'm a night person. It will be fashionable to send a message at 2 a.m. It will be fashionable to say, I'm a college dropout. It's fashionable to say, I don't have a plan. It's fashionable to say, I'm doing 10 different things and I'm cool. And each one of these, when it is said, is putting a cross mark in my mind. No, 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 no. Because with that small exception, most successful people lead a very structured, balanced life with an uncluttered brain and great focus and a tremendously hectic and grueling schedule, like you mentioned. Unfashionable, but true. If you
Absolutely.
scratch beyond the surface, that's what you'll get. That's the fact. Umesh, it
So,
has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much for sharing your insights. Thank you so much for your time. I wish you the very best for the future, and I look forward to engaging with you going ahead. Thank you.
thank you, Nalin, for having me on this show. As always, it's a pleasure talking to you, and I always look forward to have a discussion or a dialogue with you.
Thank you. The very best to your family. Good night, and have a great evening ahead.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.